It was a cold evening in a small Canadian town, where the wind brushed against the frosted windows of a tiny, dimly lit apartment. Inside, a woman named Claire sat on a worn couch, her arms wrapped around her two children, Emma and Noah. Their stomachs growled softly, but she tried to distract them with stories. "Tomorrow," she whispered, her voice trembling as she brushed a strand of hair from Emma's forehead, "we'll eat tomorrow." She smiled gently, though tears pressed at the corners of her eyes. The children nodded, trusting her completely. Outside, the streets were quiet. Snow fell steadily, covering everything in white silence. A man named Daniel, who lived down the hall, walked by their door carrying 2 bags of groceries. He was used to passing that door, used to hearing soft laughter or sometimes silence, but that night, something stopped him. Maybe it was the sound of Claire's hushed sobs. Maybe it was the memory of his own mother, who once said the same words during his hardest childhood winter. He paused, listening for a moment, and then without thinking twice, he knocked. The knock startled Claire. She quickly wiped her tears and opened the door just a crack. "Oh, Daniel," she said, forcing a smile. "Is everything okay?" Daniel hesitated, unsure how to begin. "I heard voices," he said softly. "Are the kids all right?" She nodded, trying to hide the truth, but no small voice broke through. "Mommy said we'll eat tomorrow." Something inside Daniel shattered. He looked at the children, thin, pale, and shivering slightly, and without another word, he turned and walked back to his apartment. A few minutes later, he returned carrying plates of steaming food, roasted chicken, mashed potatoes, and a few slices of bread. The aroma filled the hallway, warm and comforting. He placed the plates on the small table in their living room. Claire stood frozen, her lips trembling. "Daniel, we can't accept this," she began, but he shook his head gently. "Please," he said in a low, steady voice, "eat today." For a long moment, no one moved. Then Emma climbed onto a chair, her little hands reaching for the food, her eyes wide with disbelief. Noah followed, and together they began to eat, slowly at first, then hungrily. Claire sat down beside them, tears streaming down her face as Daniel quietly took a seat across from them. The only sound was the clinking of forks and the soft hum of the heater in the corner. After a while, Claire whispered, "You don't know what this means to us. I didn't want my kids to think kindness was gone from the world." Daniel looked at her and smiled faintly. "Kindness isn't gone," he said. "Sometimes it just needs someone to open the door." They talked late into the night, about life, about loss, about how easily people fall through the cracks even in a country as peaceful as Canada. Daniel had lost his wife a few years earlier and had lived quietly ever since, avoiding connection. Claire had lost her job 2 months ago when the cafe she worked in shut down. She had been holding things together with the last of her savings, skipping meals so her children could eat a little. Tonight was the first time in weeks she saw them truly smile. As snow continued to fall outside, Daniel quietly excused himself and left. When he returned a few minutes later, he carried more groceries, bags full of essentials. "This should last a while," he said, setting them down near the counter. Claire covered her mouth, unable to speak. "I can't pay you back," she said finally. "You don't need to," he replied. "Just promise me one thing. When you see someone else hungry, remember this night." The children were falling asleep now, their faces peaceful. Claire stood in the doorway as Daniel walked away down the hall, his figure fading into the soft yellow light. She felt a warmth spreading through her chest, a mix of gratitude and disbelief. Days turned into weeks. Claire found a new job at a bakery downtown. The first paycheck she earned, she bought an extra loaf of bread and left it at Daniel's door with a simple note, "Because of you, we didn't wait until tomorrow." He read it that evening and smiled to himself, his eyes glistening. Sometimes, he thought, one act of kindness is all it takes to change the direction of someone's life. Months later, Claire began volunteering at a local shelter, serving food to families who came in hungry and cold. Every time she handed someone a plate, she remembered Daniel's voice, the quiet strength in his words, "Eat today." The story spread through the neighborhood, whispered by neighbors and shared at community gatherings. No one knew all the details, but everyone remembered the message, that hope doesn't come from big gestures or grand speeches, it begins in small acts, in the moments when someone chooses compassion over comfort. On another winter night, almost a year later, Daniel received a knock on his own door. He opened it to find Claire and the kids standing there, smiling. "Dinner's ready," she said softly. "This time, you eat with us." He looked at them, healthier, happier, full of light, and for the first time in a long while, he felt something shift inside him. Maybe it was peace. Maybe it was home. As they sat together, laughter filling the tiny room, the wind howled outside once more. But inside, there was warmth, the kind that lingers long after the food is gone. The kind that reminds you that no matter how cold the world gets, kindness will always find a way back. And somewhere deep in Daniel's heart, he whispered again, not to them, but to himself, "Eat today."